Welcome to Xpanded Universe. I'm Michael Allen Lake.
And I'm Mairead Blue.
This is the podcast where we talk about interesting topics where we sort of know different levels of stuff. One of us is a little bit more of an expert, one of us a little bit more of a novice. Is that a fair way to put it?
Entirely fair, meaning I just learned about comic books a little over a year ago. And I've still not too good at it.
And I've been living them for actually most of my life. Actually, that's how that increased my vocabulary and all sorts of fun stuff. And this season, we are talking about The Punisher. One of the reasons we're choosing to talk about The Punisher now is that at the time of recording, Frank Castle is getting a huge spotlight put on him, especially from the non-comic book community. We've got he's going to be showing up in the Spider-Man film that's coming out in May. He's going to have his own special on Disney Plus. I believe it's called Punisher Last Kill.
I think so.
That drops on May 12th, I want to say. Probably after that, which, depending when we release this, you've probably already seen. Hopefully you've seen that. And Mairead only encountered the Punisher last year via the Daredevil TV show, was absolutely fascinated by him. So while the Punisher has become a major figure in pop culture and very sort of, politicized in some ways, and for this discussion we're staying away from politicization, we're just talking about the nature of the Punisher, it was sort of interesting to see somebody have a very different and fresh approach. And truthfully, no offense to Jerry Conway, John Romita Sr., everybody, people behind him, Chuck Dixon, all those great creators. I've never been a huge fan of his, really. I've liked him in ensembles when he pops up, but I've never been somebody to actually purchase the individual issues, with one exception, which we'll talk about later. Mairead, however, has actually been purchasing several of his individual stories.
I adore The Punisher. I, first of all, knew nothing about him, clearly. And then Michael suggested that we watch Daredevil. That's because we had watched She-Hulk. And Daredevil has quite an amusing run in in that series. Not too many episodes, but more than one. Mm-hmm. And so Michael thought it would be good if I got a sense of what the real Daredevil was. And I did, and that was wonderful. And then Daredevil Born Again came out, and The Punisher is in all of the first season, a little bit of the second season, and I just fell in love.
Well, I think he's in sort of flashbacks in the second season.
Well, yes,
he's actually in.
He's
the
not.
second.
Well, the actor is in it, and let's just say the actor is a big reason why I also like Punisher. Don't get me wrong; I've read multiple of the comics now. I very much enjoy him as a character. Mm-hmm. But Jon Bernthal is also quite attractive.
Well, so this is part of the thing that I find fascinating too. It's like, whatever brings you to that character is actually sort of a lot of fun. For some people, it's just like, this is the comic version I came to. I like the one I read in 1975, 1986, 2000, whatever. Other times, and not just for Punisher, but also people find the character in outside media, and that translates back into comics and affects their impression of it. So I think it's very fair to say that we almost like two very different versions of the Punisher. Neither one is necessarily wrong about that, but it's a very different type of thing. And
we have conversations about that, not just as it relates to the Punisher, but as relates to other characters. Right,
which hopefully, as this podcast goes on, we have more conversations. Hopefully you will be a part of those conversations as well. One of the reasons, as I touched on there, one of the reasons why we're focusing on the Punisher so much right now is that, again, he's got this the spotlight thrown at him. And so what we're hoping is that for those of you who don't know too much about the Punisher, this is something you can relate to. This is something that you can actually find interesting and understanding. We would love you to do all the usual YouTube podcasty type stuff, and make sure to put comments and such in there if you have questions you'd like to talk about. Because one thing that I will say for our newer listeners is that when we talk about a season, we talk about 4-episode arcs. They're sort of, more limited in duration. So then we'll move on to another topic after that. So you have a chance, if you hear something that you like, or something you want to comment on in episode 1 or 2, just that if you put some comments on, by the time we get to episode 4, we'll be able to respond to that and be able to hopefully address any questions or such you have. But more importantly, we really want to know what you also think about Frank Castle, or maybe some of the other Punishers. That's something we'll talk about later. Part of the reason why we're here doing this is we want to make sure that we share the joy of our fandom with other people who enjoy it as well. Because at the end of the day, this is what is amazing, this is what is fun, and part of it is not only consuming these stories, appreciating these stories, but being able to, like I said, share that, communicate it, and talk about it. So just as we're doing right now with our conversation, which we hope you greatly enjoy, we want to know what you think. Now, having said that, aside from establishing the fact that, hey, the Punisher is cute.
Not just cute, handsome. He is a man. He's not a boy. He's a man.
He's a man with a van. A battle van. What else?
Not creepy at all.
Yes, not creepy. We love you, Frank. Don't come after us. So, but having said that, what else is it about? Like, what is it about? Like, yes, he's a man, not a boy. He does these things. He makes tough choices. What else is it that you like about? Like, why? I guess what put you curious of is, like, number one, what is it that you really like about it? Number two, is he a anti-hero or an anti-villain? And then there's the third one. Is sort of like, is there some aspect of him that really appeals to you the most or the least? That's what I'd love to hear.
So I struggle with the argument regarding anti-hero versus anti-villain. The reason why I struggle with that is because I read the definition of an anti-hero and it had various points to it, but
Aristotle will be proud of you.
I'm not so sure I'm at the level of Aristotle, but well, we can wait on that analysis. Of the 4 major points, the one that hit me the most, because one of the points included cowardness, and I do not view Frank Castle as being a coward, but it was the moral gray area in which he lives. And I think that is both why I like him, but why I can also find fault in his decisions. Meaning, he does have morals. I have most recently read the Welcome Back Frank collection. I know that we will get to that in more detail later, but part of that series involves 3 additional characters who believe that they're vigilantes and they're modeling themselves after the Punisher, and they want the Punisher to be their leader. Towards the end, he finds them and he just says, guys, this is ridiculous. This is not at all what I do. You have no idea what you're doing. Your motives are not the same as mine. And I think you can pick up on that both when you learn about his backstory, meaning his whole family was killed outside of a carousel in, I believe, Central Park.
That's true, yeah.
And they just walked into this massacre, and he truly, truly felt for his family and the loss of his family. Fast forward to Welcome Back Frank, and you meet his neighbors, Joan, Scrapper Dave,
Spacker Dave,
Spacker Dave, and
Mr. Bumpo.
Mr. Bumpo, yes, Mr. Bumpo.
Sorry, I've been jumping quickly to say, as I said, I don't know too much about the Punisher, but this is the one storyline, Welcome Back Frank, again, we'll talk about later, that I really like and I adore. That's the only reason why I'm able to jump in and say, no, I think you mean this, I think you mean that. But yeah, so, yeah.
And so what you can tell as he relates to these 3 neighbors who are good people, have their own quirks and concerns about life, but clearly are trying to live a good life, that he's never going to hurt them. He's going to try to protect them. He hopes never to have to protect them, but if he has to, he's going to be there. And in this series in particular, he's not interested in taking out just anybody. He's not here to take out the random drug dealer. He's going after a huge crime family who commit multiple murders, a whole bunch of terrorist-like acts, and so he has a heart. That's what I like. This, I don't know, one last thing, I don't know if this will appeal to all of our fans here, but if anyone is interested in romantic novels, I know one of the main seriously, I'm fascinated
to see where this is going. I'm curious about this.
So one of the main male tropes is the brooding male, right? He just can't get through his skin. And from a female perspective, Frank is somewhat like that. Now, does he come highly ammoed up with lots of guns and knives, and is he entirely strong and over 8 feet tall? Yes, which can be intimidating. But the romantic in me still loves all the good that he stands for.
So, as opposed to having a bunch of emotional baggage, he has a bunch of literal baggage holding ammo.
Yes, literal baggage holding ammo, as well as closets and other forms of hideaway places.
So 2 things, if I may, based on what you said. One, I do want to point out that I think it's lost sometimes when people think about the Punisher. Again, speaking to somebody who's not the major Punisher fan, those of you out there who are huge fans, you know this, you're like, why is he talking about it? But that he's not just, as you sort of touch on it, a random vigilante who goes out there sort of Bernard Getz style and just somebody's done wrong. I'm going to fix this right now. Whatever. He was trained as a Marine. And I think especially some of the stronger stories bring that back into this. That's why he's got a tactical plan. Yeah. He's got a strategic plan. And those of you who are not Marines with the armed forces, I know you're going to say, what, Marines just have crayons, whatever. No, but the idea being that, with a military background, he is bringing some of that to bear. I'm not saying it's fully accurate, but that's one reason that he's not just like, I've got a gun, I'm upset, I'm working on this. Working on this meaning taking care of the problem. He actually does try to have some sort of plans. Do those plans always work out? Well, if they did, it'd be a boring story. Yeah. But, so to your point about how it's like that is one of the things that differentiate him. And I think a lot of us forget about that sometimes. The second thing is, if I caught you correctly in what you said, I like the fact that you said, while you like him, there's certain aspects of him that you disagree with, certain choices that he makes, which really shows that you're not just totally fanboying over him. Or fangirling. Fangirling over him. That didn't sound sexist, did it? Hopefully not. So it's not just that you are fangirling over him, but you're actually like enjoying the concept and the story. And to me, like that really is what like it's the whole thing. It's not just I like Punisher. The stories they put together, you're really enjoying that.
Oh, absolutely. This is not some abstract, ill-defined like of a character. I enjoy the fact that he is more morally complex. His character is complex. I think that's why, as you see the characters that are good with whom he interacts, they like him. They find out, they know what he does. Mm-hmm. But their overarching thought is, no, he's a good guy. He would never tell you he's a good guy. That's for certain. But they see something in him and they think, okay, he is good, he is safe. I trust him with my life.
So this, you don't have a lot of... because you're still newer to the comic book world, you don't have a lot of exposure into this. And as I said, as not a major Punisher fan, I don't know exactly either too, but the times that I've seen him show up has been to see how different people react to him and how he reacts to different people. For instance, his whole relationship with Daredevil, which you're becoming an expert on, is a very much sort of contentious. There's some respect, there's some not. But he has tremendous respect for Captain America, which I'm sure Captain America is not thrilled about that fact. Mm-hmm. Because there was one of the great things about comics, you can have what-if stories, imagining stories, and kind of, stuff that doesn't fit entirely into continuity. There is one story that sort of Imagining did, which was Punisher takes on the Marvel Universe. Basically, he kills most of them. And what I bring this up is there is a scene where he's fighting Captain America, and what it really comes down to is they're both warfighters. They were, but very different wars and very, very different ways of fighting. So that's why it's like, even though the Punisher, Frank, seems to have respect for Cap is not sure. I don't think Cap can decide whether Frank is a murderer or a soldier. Sorry, Marine, not soldier, because for those of you who are listening, who are into the military, you'll know, hey man, Marine's not a soldier, don't bring that up. So sorry, I should say warfighter, but bit of a tangent. We may want to cut this later. Bit of a tangent, may want to cut this later, but I just want to know, if we say Marine versus soldier, don't at me, bro. I understand there's a difference. But for the sake of this conversation, we're just saying soldiers from two different wars.
Well, one of the things that you reminded me of, as you noted, I do not know as much about his relationship with Captain America. Mm-hmm. But I do know there's a scene in Welcome Back, Frank with Daredevil, and Frank understands that Daredevil does not want to kill him. Because Daredevil's in a position, now Frank has tied him up, but he also duct-taped a gun to Daredevil's hand. And Daredevil had actually injured Frank quite a bit. And Frank said, this is your last opportunity. Because otherwise, Frank, the Punisher, was going to jump off the building and go run away and heal, as one does. And Daredevil was truly conflicted. It's an ongoing set of panels where Daredevil is trying to decide, do I shoot the gun, do I shoot the gun?
But just to be clear, because if he didn't shoot the gun, he would feel responsible for Frank's action. Everybody Frank kills after that?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So finally, Daredevil shoots the gun. But Frank pulled out the clip, so there was no ammunition. So he felt as though he was saving Daredevil from doing something that he didn't want to do, while at the same time letting Daredevil consciously make the decision, I will kill this man because I cannot live with what he is then going to do.
Which is, if you think about it, that's a fast way to make an argumentative point, because he still wins the logical argument. I do want to stress, if you're a college professor, don't try that. But That may be a bad joke. Sorry about that. But it's like that is certainly is a fascinating. But I think that also cuts to the heart of Frank, where Frank's like, yeah, I will find a way to make a rhetorical argument, but I'm going to ground it so hard in the real world and in your face, because he does seem to have. I don't know if it's contempt for the folks that spend too much time moralizing and intellectualizing about it, but he definitely draws a line between them. Because, like, for instance, this, and you've not really seen him interact much with Spider-Man. Matter of fact,
No, I don't think I've seen him at all.
Right. So I think the Spider-Man movie Brand New Day will be the first time you sort of see that, and I'll be curious what your take is on Spider-Man. Does he think that Spider-Man is completely naive? Pay attention. Does he think that or he's one of the ones who's like, I do this, so people like Spider-Man don't have to get their hands dirty and sort of touch on that. That is certainly one possibility. Now, Titanium spinning off Spider-Man. The other thing that I find fascinating, or get a kick out of it, especially with regard to you and the Punisher and Daredevil and Kingpin. Because again, remember, Mairead came to this from watching the Daredevil Netflix series and Daredevil Born Again. So in addition to the Punisher, she also adores Kingpin. We will not delve into why you like them so much. That's a session for another time. But the reason why I bring that up, and I find this intriguing, is that both of those characters were created as Spider-Man foils.
Which
and
I
yet,
didn't know until we were doing prep for this show.
Right, and then, and yet they have become more closely associated with Daredevil, because Kingpin showed up in, I believe it was Amazing Spider-Man number 50, and I want to say Frank showed up in ASM 129. Does that sound right? Okay.
That's right.
Because he doesn't kill bad guys, but it was the Jackal. I know you know who that is, but
I know the Jackal asked him to kill Spider-Man.
Right, and framed him to make it look like Spider-Man was a villain.
Yes.
So that's the thing too. So Frank's always had a moral code. So about what we were saying earlier about his tactics and such. Whether or not you agree with his code, he has a code.
Yes.
And that's sort of been intriguing about that. But I found that fascinating that those are two characters who, while they were sort of popular in Spider-Man stuff, became much more closely associated with Daredevil in some ways.
Right.
So
I think the match is better as far as what the goals and aspirations are of each character. They're wonderful foils. I'm not so sure Superman, and you know more about Superman than I do, I'm not so sure Superman, especially Superman being someone who has additional powers that are non-human, I'm not so sure he makes a great foil for the Punisher. Whereas Daredevil, again, being someone who truly does not have what we would consider to be superhero powers.
No, but except for his radar sense.
Well, yes,
sorry,
but arguably
on a
that's
physical level. Sorry. In terms of a fighting type of thing, right? Because
Yes.
Superman could whiz in and take care of stuff in 5.73 seconds,
and then fly away with his shit.
Yeah.
Well, not fly. He can spider away with his spider webs.
Did you just get Superman and Spider-Man mixed up?
No, I did not. No. It was a poor choice of words.
Because you realize Superman doesn't have spider webs. I'm just saying.
Well,
I did say she was new to comics, right?
I am sorry. But
Is it because Superman's not as good looking as the Punisher? Is that why you get him mixed up with Spider-Man?
well, we can talk about that because you know how I feel about the new Superman, which is quite friendly and font.
Check out a future season for that discussion.
But the Kingpin and the Punisher, they also do not have superhero abilities.
Superpower.
Sorry,
abilities.
superpower.
I mean, right, they're definitely not superheroes, but yeah, so.
But right, superpower abilities. And so I think that makes them really great opponents. Where really it's the Kingpin and Daredevil are opponents and Punisher somewhere in the middle.
That's right. I guess it's more of it would be more appropriate to say that Punisher is a foil for Daredevil rather than an opponent.
Yes. Oh, I don't think he's an opponent.
Okay.
No.
It may sometimes be at cross purposes, but it's not. Well, especially certainly when we're seeing Daredevil Born Again, they're almost allies in some ways.
Exactly.
Which what I'll be also very curious about is as you continue to go on your comics journey about this, seeing different versions of Frank in this thing over time. Because as we talked about, different creators and such interpret it different. Like I love Welcome Back Frank. And by the way, Jimmy Palmiotti, the inker on that, doesn't get enough credit for his contributions to Frank Castle, but that's just my opinion. No offense to Garth Ennis or Steve Dillon. Wait, Steve Dillon was
I believe so.
the penciler on that. Okay. No offense to people who worked on it. You all did a great job, but I think Jimmy Palmiotti doesn't get enough credit for some of his work on different Punisher titles. But through their different interpretations. Obviously, those folks had the Welcome Back Frank interpretation. Some people like, some people don't. Unlike, say, in the 80s and 90s when he was insanely popular and he was very much like he was taking up bad guys left and right. He had 3 or 4 different monthly titles, doing all these things. And then there was a time period where he actually became an angel of redemption, which the less said about that, the better. The point is being lots of interpretations about this. I'm going to be very curious as you go on your journey about the Punisher and read different interpretations, what you think of those. I mean, I suspect that the one you've seen now will always be your favorite. But I'll be curious the lens through which you see some of these other things. Because didn't you tell me actually you're actually going back? You're reading a facsimile edition of his first miniseries. Sorry, quick thing. So for those of us who are not comic book fans, something that the publishers started doing in the last handful of years are putting out what's called facsimile editions, which is not only a reprint of a story from, say, 1969, 1986, 1992, but also includes the actual ads and everything in there. It literally is a recreation of it. And I know one of the things that Mairead got to Rishi was a facsimile edition of the first issue of the first Punisher limited series. And I'll be very curious. I think you just started reading that.
Mm-hmm. Just started reading it.
We were talking about some of the Fig Newton ads in that.
Yes, the ads are hilarious. Well, sorry, they are hilarious from a 2026 viewpoint because they seem so simple. There's not a lot going on, but. Well, I'm not going to get into the Fig Newton one. Go find the advertisement for yourself. It'll make you laugh the minute you look at it.
Well, one of the things too is, like I said, this was the first miniseries. Frank had been around. He'd shown up in lots of stuff, and this was at a time. And maybe at some point we'll actually do a whole. So you talk about the importance of the miniseries, some of the key miniseries, or limited series rather, because limited series were still a new enough thing. They were unusual. So when you schedule them, it had to be either like some sort of event or some sort of big issue or some sort of big, feature about it. Now it's used much more commonly for just, hey, we're not sure how well this will sell. So the fact that Punisher was given a 4-issue limited series was actually a huge compliment to him. And the character and all sorts of stuff. What's even more of an interesting compliment is there are 5 issues in this 4-issue limited series. So as they are writing it, and I don't know enough about the background because again, sorry, I'm not. Love you, Frank, but not a huge fan. But you haven't been one of my huge ones. She'll research this at some point, I'm sure.
Yes.
But as they were publishing it, I'm unclear whether it's like the story is going in a different direction, we need a 5th issue, or whether marketing was like, holy crap, this is selling well, can you pad this out? I've never read the original limited series, so I don't know which one comes to play in that. Either one works, but either way, it cemented the Punisher was popular, and he got his first ongoing series shortly after that.
Oh, I actually did not know that.
But it's one of the handful of things where it's like, number 5 in a 4-issue limited series. Because Marvel would always say at the top, because again, limited series were a newer concept, limited series at number 3, number 4. So number 5 in a 4-issue limited series. So that is actually one of my 2 favorite examples of that. Because the other one, and this is a bit of a stretch, bit of a tangent, I know, tangent time, is the last issue of Marvel Comics' original run of Transformers, which said number 81 in a 4-issue limited series.
Wait, how is that possible? Number 81?
Hey, there was a time when Transformers were more impressive than Frank Castle, I'm just saying. Because it's similar stuff. There would be a 4-issue limited series, and as the numbers started coming in, they were like, holy crap, this is really cool. So they ended number 4 on a cliffhanger, and then I think a month or 2 later, they started the ongoing series. And then now to start the ongoing series, they started a parallel series in the UK market as well. This has nothing to do with the Punisher, but it's definitely going to be a future conversation and a future season. But sorry.
Oh, no, that's interesting. I wonder how that audience took to the comics.
That's one thing that, and you and I have talked about this a little bit offline, but how the age of social media has changed how comics are produced and brought together now, because there can be more immediacy. One of the great things about comics back in the day, like I was there, is that people would write letters in, they'd publish these letters, but also because of the production timeline, the letters would always be 3 to 4 months after the issue would come out. Mm-hmm. So people would write in, they'd also include their address, they'd say if they want their address included, they'll create correspondence, they'll create various sort of different clubs, and interesting comments and sort of a back and forth. That's what led to some of the original fandom growing in there. I remember actually in the 90s when lettercolumns were basically they sort of had to be phased out because they couldn't keep up. They tried to say, you can email us here, but the problem was with production timelines again, right. They were still a couple months late. And then also, if you go back and look through some of the letters that people have written in, not only do you have past comic book creators, but folks like George R.R. Martin and other fantasy creators, you can actually find their letters in the letter columns, these things. And yes, I did have a letter published in a Marvel comic at one point in the 80s. Well, no, you say that now. If we visit it later, you might find it a little cringe-worthy. But it was a thing. It was really exciting.
Small child Michael who sent it in?
I mean, teenage Michael, does that count as small or not?
No. Teenage Michael.
I was shorter than I am now, we'll say that, so I don't know if that counts as a small child.
No, that's lovely. Okay. You took time and effort out to write a letter. That's good.
I appreciate that. I really appreciate you saying that. So this sounds like a good point to say we're going to break before we actually do the next episode. So thank you for tuning in to our first episode of this. Again, how we do this format is with the seasons. We have 4-episode seasons, and so this season is going to be on the Punisher. Make sure you keep an eye out for season 2, which is also talking about Supergirl. But we've had a lot of fun sitting here talking about this. We hope you come back for some of the other comments. Before I say my final comment that I want to say, I'm pausing to see if Mairead wants to say something.
I would just say, remember, this is a lighthearted podcast. We hope to impart some information. We understand there are other more serious podcasts out there, but we hope that you enjoy our take on this season The Punisher, next season Supergirl, and have as much fun as we're having introducing this to you all.
That is so well said, and I love that. The one thing that I want to jump in, because the lighthearted thing is important, but also just remind you that right now, not even right now, at any particular time, it can feel like the world is on fire. It can feel like you are going through a lot of stuff, that you have a lot of things pulling at you, trying to bring you down. I just want to remind you that don't worry, you're not alone. People understand what you're going through, and they're there. If you need to reach out and talk to somebody, please do that. We sometimes try to encourage people not to do it, but remember, give yourself a break. Realize it's okay to feel this way, and it's okay to reach out to somebody and to talk to them and have that conversation. Don't ever forget that. And having said that, please do all the things that you do. Please come back, and we are really happy that you're here to share our fandom with us.
Yes, thank you.